Hey everyone, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and thanks for watching our weekly, or we're trying our best to do a weekly video recording for our database podcast. So I'm MJ, and over here we have David, who's going to talk about today about talking to your data. Right, very generic but very useful. So now, David, how do we begin with talking with our database or our data?
Yeah, thanks, MJ. This has been one of the topic that I find it to be quite exciting and interesting. Um, so today we'll be comparing two different methods of talking to data. You and I coming from the Microsoft world, obviously there is in Power BI, there's the functionality to do Q&As to data. And then with the LLM, the Gen AI side of things, there's also text to SQL capability as well. So we're gonna do some comparison using the EventureWorks database. It's just a local Microsoft SQL Express instance here. So we'll try to talk to the same data using two different methods, and we'll have a chat about how you find the experience. Oh, let me share my screen now. Okay. Before we get in here, so just quickly showing the database here. This is the EventureWorks 2019. It's a local database on my workstation. It's got a fair few tables here, different schemas. So look and feel is like a proper database. And obviously it's got some data in there as well. We're going to start with Power BI first. So with the Power BI side, I just kind of loaded some of the tables into a Power BI report by import method. And here I'm just using the Q&A. It's this Q&A visual. Yeah, this is the Q&A visual in Power BI, and I've got the data loaded. I've got some tables right next to it, just kind of for validation purposes. So I'm going to ask the first question: what is the total sales in 2012? And yeah,
It's
as
the
you can
same.
see,
Yep.
it says it's that, which is fine. It is spot on, which is good. If I ask another question, what's the most popular product name in 2012 by sales quantity? Yeah, you can see this is a very precise popular product name. Yeah, this is a very precise question.
Yes, a very specific one.
Yeah, but it doesn't give me anything. So if I ask in a different way, which product name has the highest total quantity in 2012? Basically the same question, but if I ask it in a slightly different manner, I do get my answer that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a typo here, but it seems to be ignoring that, which is good.
So how does it work underneath? Does it use NLP, natural language processing as well? Does it use OpenAI or?
No, this one has been around for quite some time. So so the data sitting behind here is the analytic services, right? It's like a data warehouse type of thing. So what I have, if I click edit here, I've created some measures for total sales and total quantity. So I think there's definitely some, natural language kind of elements in the Q&A functionality.
But it's not LLM.
But I don't think, because this one is pre-LLM, so I don't think it's utilizing the LLM in here. So what I wanted to show here is just, okay, I need to ask the question in a kind of pretty precise manner. Otherwise, I may or may not actually get a response, or I may or may not get the right response here. So it's still quite useful because if I get out of here, if I want to use some of the default functions, you can see sometimes it gives me a table, sometimes it gives me the actual chart, and yeah, it's got some capability of deciding what's the best way of presenting the information here. I haven't been using the Q&A functions too much in my reports, mostly because of I just can't predict what it's going to show. I don't know exactly what people is
So
going
it's
to
more
ask the
exploratory,
questions.
right? It's not really meant to give like a report that's final. It's more like exploratory.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's one method of talking to the data. It is natural language. I am talking, like asking a question, and it is able to give me a response. So
And this one's for free, right? Like you don't have to pay on top to get this feature.
yeah, this is a standard feature, standard visual. So yeah, I guess like now there is also the Copilot part of
Yes, which is
oh,
paid, by the way.
okay.
Um, and I think the licensing model is around using Fabric Compute, I think.
Right.
But then again, right, that's a separate discussion that we can probably talk about in the future topic.
Yeah, I can't wait for that to be ready because I can't really test it for now. What I can test is um, using a slightly different method. So this is I'll post the link. It's by this Alexandro. He's got a YouTube video about using LangChain. So I kind of mimic that and then twisted a few things in my local environment. So yeah, I've kind of loaded the packages here. I've presented a prompt. This is just the first part of this is just the creating that SQL statement. So for it to actually create that SQL statement, obviously it requires the connections, but also I need to pass the table schema, table name, and column name into the LLM, so you actually understand what kind of information is available out there. Let me quickly run this. Yeah, this is I personally find this to be pretty exciting. It's something that I
Yeah.
wanted to try for a while and finally get it to work. So yeah, so I've so far just loading. I need to pass the key, OpenAI key here. A quick note that I am using the free version of OpenAI. So this is 3.5 terrible. ChatGPT is 3.5 terrible. And so this is the SQL chain. And if I just posted a question, because in the prompt previously, I've already passed all the information, required information to it. So it has some context awareness. And because the model is trained with some of the like coding data, like coding stuff, so you can actually interpret it into a SQL statement. So which is pretty cool already, I
Yeah,
personally
that's
think.
that's awesome. Like,
So you can see
yeah.
all the selects, you kind of understand what I'm trying to do here. And so the next part of this is then, running the query, get the response back, and then present it in a natural language, like answer in a natural language method. So this is a slightly different prompt, and this is the full chain. Our chain kind of works. You just kind of have these chains, and then here I get to ask the question again, like what is the total sales in 2012? And for the first part, I've printed out the SQL statement as well. So yeah, you can see that it's joining this and that, and then it kind of applies a filter, and I get my result back. And the nice thing is, if the LLM, I just find it to be more context aware. So if I ask a question in a slightly different way, it can still mostly determine what I'm trying to get out of it. Compared to the PowerBI Q&A method, I have to be very specific. I have to, use some keywords to get specific answers. Yeah, this part is taking a little bit longer. Okay, so this is something that's one of the downside of the LLMs is what's the word? The hallucination problem.
Yeah, it guess, right? It's like
Yeah,
trying to make sense, right? It's not always correct, right? I think that's a term, right? It's hallucinating. Um,
yeah,
it understands you really well, but it's not always accurate that it can, perform the intended action.
yeah. So in the error message, we can see that it's actually calling the wrong
Mm-hmm.
field. It actually doesn't have a field called quantity,
Yep.
but for some reason it tries to call it. So let's try it again. No, I didn't get the right answer. let me ask the question in a slightly different way. What's the most popular product in 2012? And yeah,
Okay,
hopefully
that
this
seems to
one
work.
will get
So does it also invoke the SQL for you? You still need, or do you still need to execute the SQL?
I
Oh, it
don't,
doesn't.
yeah, this one I'm just kind of printing out the SQL statement, just so that I understand what it's trying to do.
Mm,
You can also tell here that this is not exactly what I want, as well, because it's actually doing a count star on the, yeah, I suppose it's fine. Yeah. Well, it got me an answer, but I know this one is not the correct answer. Let me try it again. What's the most popular product name in 2012? But as you can see, this is the part that I find quite interesting, because with the LLM, it consistently able to understand what I'm trying to do.
mm,
But when it generates the SQL statement, it's a bit of like a hit and miss.
yeah.
So it doesn't always generate it on the first go. And yeah, when I tried it before we start recording, like, probably like 60-70% of the time it can generate the right answers.
Mm,
But the rest is just hit and miss.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I know this one is not the right one again, and this is yeah, just it's
Yeah.
supposed to just add up there's a total quantity
Hmm.
column. It's supposed to use that one. Oh well, yeah.
Oh
So
well. Yeah. Well, come to think of it, David, right? Like if you don't do it this way, there in my head, I've been doing things a bit differently, right? Like first off, with LLM, let's say I can use VS Code or Azure Data Studio and use GitHub Copilot to help me create the SQL statement that I need, right? But I'm still kind of like to the point that hey, I need SQL. Let's talk about SQL, right? That means I still need to have understanding of SQL. But what this you're showing right now, what it's trying to do is that you're trying to generate the SQL for you automatically based from the requirement. Which I think through time maybe we'll get there and like that's probably just what we need. And we just take the SQL statement as it is and we just trust it, right? Um the second approach where I use LLM as well to something like this is that um, I actually copied the whole DDL or the whole schema, feed it to something like GPT-4 or Claude, because again, it can take a million token, right? So feed the whole schema in there. And now I basically ask it, hey, can you generate these SQL statements for me? How do I do this? How do I do that? And then I had to copy paste that to the IDE. So those are like the two use cases I have at the moment and how I use them. But I think the third one, which would be probably very exciting, that we just talked about earlier, was like the whole Copilot experience, right? I think that's where it should go later on, right? Like, hey, here's a database, plug in some Copilot in there, let all the embeddings, data shenanigans happening at the back, handle that in the background, and now you just want to talk to your data. I think that's the future we're looking at here. Yeah.
yeah, definitely looking forward when Fabric is able to actually release that feature. Hopefully not too far away. I do have two other things to say about this. One is I think it's coming back to that accuracy. So if you ask the question, it gives you the answer back. How can you make sure that's actually accurate? Because the way that like at least the ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo is working is kind of like a hit and miss. And I guess ChatGPT 4 or 5 might be much better,
Yeah.
but there may not be like a guarantee that if I run this, ask the same question 100 times, I'm going to get exactly the same result.
So it's the same. It's still the same discussion from last week, right? Like it's still how frustrated will you be working with these LLMs, right? And that's the
Yeah,
measure, right? Like
that's one part of it, and the other concern is around the security, because at the moment I'm
oh yeah,
using
you're
using
you're
online
basically
version.
throwing all the prompts to OpenAI, right? Like you're actually
Yeah,
giving the schema and everything. Yeah.
exactly. So um, I have tried, as you can probably see in the notebook here, I have tried to run a local yeah, model,
Local
like LLM
LLM. Yeah.
model. But that's when I realized my local compute is
Not.
nowhere near strong enough. This
Yeah.
is ridiculous. Like, yeah, the amount of compute I need. I've got for context, I've got a 2060 RTX, so it's like a very old GPU, still a GPU, and only got I think 6 GB of GPU memory on there, so I can't run anything more than 8,000 tokens basically. And the context, just the schema side of things, that's way more than that. So yeah, but in theory, that's achievable if there is one good LM out there that's really good at interpreting like the text to SQL side of things.
Claude is very
And
good at it, by the way, David.
eh,
That's what I'm using at the moment. That's why my copy pasting of DDL to Claude and like asking Claude about it seems to work because Claude is very accurate technically. Like at
yeah,
least 80-90% of the time I'm getting the result that I want. And I'm very, very surprised like how even the very complex joins queries out there, Claude can do it.
yeah, that's the other interesting thing. Like, is for example, if I want to use Claude 3, but I don't want to send my data online. Like, Microsoft has got a way around this now that everything kind of kept within the tenant. So maybe that will be the future. Maybe
Mm.
like ChatGPT, there will be like a Claude 3
Yeah,
version available.
probably an AI studio version of Claude 3 is the
Yeah.
best way to go. Hopefully that happens, I don't know, like 3 months from now. But
Mm.
really what I'm looking forward is GPT-5 on Azure OpenAI. And that's like the next thing, 1 million tokens or more. And then the comprehension, the benchmark that it just, kills the whole competition again. And there you go, right? Like you just have to pass in all of your data in there, like your schema, your everything, and then you get all the thing that you want.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty big. I'll stop sharing now. Actually. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of like really exciting like progressions we've seen, and yeah, I think it's definitely leading towards that crazy space. For me, working on the data side of things, I find this might be a game changer because it changes the entire at the moment, if I want to consume some data, it's either in like Excel or there's some form of reporting or dashboard.
Yeah, the time
Um,
of access is just gonna be like, like very minimal,
yeah,
right? Like,
the whole user interface thing, it's going to be quite different with these kind of capabilities. I can all of a sudden start just
yeah, it's
talking
all
to the
just gonna be
data.
one Siri away, right? Like, hey Siri,
Yeah.
what's my data, blah blah blah, everything like that, like, or
And then potentially that might lead on to the next step about, okay. Trying the health app. Yeah, and then it might lead to the next stage as well. So once it can talk to the data, can it then just generate the strategy based on the
hmm,
data, like get that insight or knowledge, summarize that out of it, and then
yeah,
let's say I want to do product reviews or I want to do a sales strategy kind of thing, it might be able to.
yeah, and you now focus more on decisions, right? Because you don't have to do a lot of the data prep work anymore. Really,
Mm,
it's about strategy and like decisions. Like, where do we go? What do we do? Here's insight for you right now. What's your action? Right? It's all gonna go there.
yeah, it's a
Or
matter of
even
time.
further, maybe you can parameterize everything and create your own models out of it, right? And you do
Yes.
predictions and like you do some baselining and like if it's 70% chance that this goes here, sell off this item, right? Or something like that, right? You auto decide things already.
Yeah, this is yeah, pretty crazy because once like one LM is able to do those kind of things, then it does kind of change a lot of the skill set a fair
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, so
Now it's really back to that magician skills, right? Like how effective are you as a wizard rather than as an engineer?
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But who knows? There might be some unknown challenges
Yeah.
in that process. I don't know how well the hallucination problem can be resolved, for example.
I
Yeah,
think it's within our lifetime, right? I think within a lifetime,
yeah,
99% will be resolved, right? Like the chance that, GPT will miss is probably just 1% to nil within our lifetime.
yeah. I think that's good. So like, we can see it in the future, but not too soon. So
Mhm.
we don't necessarily need to freak out too much about it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, cool.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's
So,
all I want to show. Yes.
yeah. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. And please comment, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you soon again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.